green. Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go! And a good morning, Birds fans. You got your Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald here with you on a hump day edition of Birds 365, show number 366. We start on our next grouping of
365. We got to get to 1,365 before we have that in the title again.
Oh, shoot. I didn't even think of it that way. Yeah. That sounds like a long way off,
McMullen. That's a ways. We'll get there.
I don't even know if I'm going to still be upright at that time. Hey, I'm upright today. My 30-plus-year-old alarm worked, no problems whatsoever, even though I was on the air talking to Eagles fans till 2 o'clock in the morning last night on WIP. I am ready to roll. And I want to get your take on this, Johnny Mac. And my pal John Johnson put it to me this way when we did our crossover last night. More than 24 hours removed, because when you're in the moment, you as a reporter at the game need to keep emotion out of it, but you're surrounded by it in the stadium and you can feel the pulse of the link. Now that you take the emotion out of it, it's less so for a guy like yourself than it is just a regular fan, but you can't completely avoid it either. Any less impressive, their beatdown of the Minnesota Vikings, than it was when you and I were here 24 hours ago?
No, it was an impressive win. I never get too high and never get too low. I wasn't too low after the Lions game. I understood the environment. I understand the environment from the other perspective, so I don't get too high. I thought it was when you look at it with the other team's glasses on, you start to say, all right, I thought that was a bad game plan, and I thought the Eagles took advantage of it. Playing on the road, as we said, which I made a big deal out of in Detroit, and it was a big deal. You start to look at it. They didn't play well. So to me, it was like this, two ships passing in the night. The Eagles played well and they didn't play well. So, if two teams play well, then you say you generally don't have blowouts and routes like that. So you look at it from both sides of the spectrum. But I thought from the Eagles' perspective, look, I thought JG had a great game plan. I rewatched the game. He took advantage of Garrett Bradbury, which I talked about all week. That was what the extra aggression was about. It was right up the middle almost all the time when he sent 0 blitzes. And that's like looking at your opponent and saying, this guy we can take advantage of. And they did. So I think, fans get caught up in that. We always talk about the aggression. Well, every week isn't like that. The week before you had Frank Ragnow, was one of the best centers, even though he's banged up. So you can't do that. So to me, that kind of stuff is impressive. You're like looking at your opponent saying, boom, that's it. That's the weakness. Let's go get it. And the Eagles did a tremendous job with it. And then offensively, same type of thing. You're practicing against the same coverage scheme week in and week out. So the ins and outs of it, the weaknesses. I think the Eagles guessed correctly. They're going to make the quarterback beat them from the pocket. And they had a good plan. They had a good plan for it. So I think the coaching staff did a wonderful job. Both sides, special teams, maybe not as much. And I thought it was an impressive performance. That hasn't changed.
And good on the Eagle coaching staff for handling their business the way they did. I'll say this about Eagles fans, while I say it about the 31 other fan bases in the National Football League. After a game is played, most people decide the game was played this way because of what my team did.
Yeah,
they don't factor the opponent in.
Exactly.
If the home team plays well, we won handily because we're great. If the home team gets beat or doesn't play as well as expectation, well, we played badly because, well, we stink or we're not good enough or we have to improve in this area. They never factor in the opponent.
No.
Now, for me, oftentimes I over factor in the opponent. Like week 1, I didn't think Lions were going to be able to stay on the field with the Eagles. I just didn't think they had enough talent to go mano a mano with the Eagles, and they did. I undervalued the Detroit Lions coming into the game. In this past game against Minnesota, yeah, maybe I overvalued the Minnesota Vikings. Maybe I did give their offense a little bit more credit than they deserved. I think it's hard to not give Justin Jefferson credit, and Dalvin Cook's a pretty damn good player. You know my feelings about Kirk Cousins. He is the living definition of an average quarterback in the National Football League, and that's why I picked the Eagles to win. I just didn't have them winning as handily as they did, and the defense playing as well as they did. Yeah, you need to have a balance. When you're evaluating a game, you should use it before the game is played, but then you definitely have to use it after the game is played. It's not always about the hometown team. There is another team out there on the field, and they have a lot to say about the outcome of any given game.
Yeah, no doubt. And, in the case of Gannon, he's kind of stressed that, and people kind of snicker and laugh, and he says it changes from week to week, but it does.
It does.
And he deserves credit for it. Now, you can argue, all right, well, you look at certain players. Jefferson's a perfect example. You could play it safe, or you could do what the Eagles did and say, all right, I got to weigh this and say, I have a really good corner. Maybe I can leave him on the island at times against a great receiver because they have such a weakness in the interior of their offensive line. I'm going to get home. You're going to get home. Look, if you're playing Jason Kelce, to give Eagles fans an example, you're not going to say that. You're not going to say, I'm going to leave my great corner on an island because I can get home with an interior blitz. You're not going to say that. If you do say that, you're going to get beat.
Right.
So it really is opponent dependent from week to week, and you'll have a new set of challenges with the Washington Commanders, and I think it'll be a little bit more difficult because I think division rivals sort of understand each other. They're so used to playing each other a little bit better, and they'll have a better grasp of what Nick Sirianni is trying to accomplish offensively. So even though they have some issues, they lost their center. They have a good center, by the way, but he's gone on short-term injured reserve. So they're going to have some issues from that perspective. Chase Young's not there, so their defense has been struggling. But I think they'll have a better feel for what the Eagles do and what the Eagles want to do and what the Eagles do well.
We just gave credit, rightfully so, to Jonathan Gannon. Had an outstanding game plan coming in against the Vikings and implemented it damn close to perfection. On the other side of the ball, I think we got to give a big nod to Shane Steichen. I think he's getting less credit, praise, whatever word you want to use to describe it, than maybe he deserves, because here on Birds 365, and for me 30 plus years on WIP, every single year that I've been on the radio in the time, run pass ratio. What's the run pass ratio? The Eagles need to do this. The Eagles need to do that. It is always a topic.
I would, if I had to do your job, Jody, I would have off myself long ago if people keep talking about run pass ratio in 2020. Where are we? 2022.
2022. And by the way, when I got here in 1990, they were talking about run pass ratio. So it hasn't changed. Shane Steichen has struck pretty close to the perfect balance in the first two games. And people sung the praises of the Eagles last year. Little did we know, Shane Steichen had more to do with it than we thought when the head coach turned over the play calling responsibilities to him. But right now, the Philadelphia Eagles, despite the fact that they got A.J. Brown, despite the fact that Jalen threw it to him 122 times the first week of the season, they're still number one in the NFC rushing the football, yards per game. Numero uno. Now, a lot of that has to do with their very able running quarterback, but that counts as a rushing play. They're number one in the run, and they're number two overall behind only Carson Wentz and the Washington Commanders when it comes to total yards through the air. Carson number one, Eagles number two. Who can possibly complain about the balance that the Eagles have shown these first 2 weeks, Johnny Mac? When they need to run it, they run it. When they need to pass it, they pass.
Yeah, well, I think Shane has done a good job, and here's where I'm going to temper things, and people are going to get upset. Look, they played very well against two probably going to end up bottom third of the league defenses. All right, that's number one. At some point they're going to, and I can't tell you when, but at some point they're going to see a good defense, and that'll
no. All right, well, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. When is that happening?
Well, it's a good question. I'd have to pull up the schedule, and I'll do that. But they have an easy schedule, so maybe it doesn't happen, Jody. But whenever it happens, when it comes, it might come in the playoffs. It's going to be. We saw it with Tampa Bay. Look, our buddy Jeff Kerr just tweeted out this morning. I'll give Jeff, host of Good Morning NFC East, a little plug. He just pointed out the last 5 games for Jalen Hurts, put up these amazing statistics, how successful. Oh, you missed one, Jeff, though. You missed one.
Only talking regular season.
Yes, only talking regular season. You missed one. And Todd Bowles shut this offense down and shut Jalen Hurts down. And he shut him down dramatically. Look, there's not I think people forget, and that's why, and we talk about statistics, and you can put value on one statistic more than another statistic. They're all skewed because you only face a certain number of really good teams that can give you an impact, and you tend to bloat those statistics when you're playing a little bit lesser competition. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think, as I said, Detroit and Minnesota are going to end up bottom third in the league in defense. We'll see if that shakes out. If they don't, maybe it looks more impressive down the road. I will say, from the perspective of when you're putting up whatever it is, 470, 480 yards, but the Eagles have been playing, when you're ahead 17, it's easy to keep that balance. If you're down 17, if you get into a game when you're down 17, you're not going to have that balance. You saw it again. Look at it from the other team's perspective. One of the things Detroit did well, and the Eagles acknowledge this, when they were down 17, they didn't abandon the running game. The Eagles expected them to, but they didn't abandon the running game. And the Eagles got kind of gashed a little bit by it. Minnesota did exactly as expected. They abandoned the running game when they got behind. And it becomes easier when a team is one-dimensional and you see the Eagles teeing off and everybody loves it and the aggression. So you have to look at it under the perspective. Everybody looks good when you're playing from the lead, Jody. The difficult part is when you got to come back when you're down 2 scores. Look at your guy Tua in Miami. When you're down, can you come back? Can the Eagles win that type of game? I don't know. if the Eagles can win.
Right.
That
We don't know yet. You can't
Yeah.
say they can't.
No,
but
I can't say they can't.
Nor can you say, oh, they'll be able to come back from it. You're
Yeah.
right. That is still a to be determined. But to further your point, and again, there's 2 games. We're trying to put a specific emphasis on something that is 2 games deep. We've just stated that we can't say with certainty that the Eagles will be a come from behind team or not. Yes or no. We don't know. And I don't want to overjudge the first 2 games, but the barometer is the barometer. If you want to factor in what kind of a defense they were, how much they had to turn the roster over, stop me when you see a team that the Eagles are playing this year. The best defense in the NFL, at least yardage-wise, in the first 2 weeks of the season. 49ers? No. Bills? No. Broncos? No. Patriots? No. Bucks, I told you yesterday, the Bucks defense, if you look at all the teams in the NFC, their offensive side, their defensive side, the best unit might be the Bucks defense. So that's the first one. And yes, the Eagles may have to play them again. We know it's not going to come till January, but they may have to play them again at some point. Dallas's defense is 6th in the NFL right now.
Well, Micah Parsons, yeah,
That's
Micah's going
Parsons
to
all
be
by himself, right?
Micah's well, and Trayvon Diggs and DeMarcus Lawrence. So I mean, DeMarcus usually struggles against Lane Johnson. Everybody tends to struggle against Lane Johnson, but they have splash players. They have players that can make plays on defense, and Micah Parsons might be the best defensive player in football. And I shouldn't say that because Aaron Donald still exists, but I should put Aaron Donald up into a corner.
Yeah, he's back 7 of the back 7 in the NFL. Yeah. He's the best player.
He's really good is the point I'm trying to make. And yeah, he'll be a guy that will certainly be a test. And you see him, if you watch the guy, it's amazing the impact he can have on a game. So there'll be tests, and there might even be tests that you don't envision. Teams get better, teams
right.
As the season goes on. It is still a short sample size to just assume everybody's good, assume everybody's bad after 2 games. I think the Giants will be a clear indication of that. I still don't think they're going to be a good team, and Brian Daboll deserves credit for getting them over the hump twice early in the season, but I'm not going to buy into that as an example. So look, they're playing well, and it's time. It's time to say, can this team be a significant contender? And I think they can. And by that, I don't mean NFC East. I mean NFC title. But there's a long way to go. And I keep looking at this window. I'm going to jump way ahead, Jody, because we've talked about this window since the offseason. Because if Jalen Hurts keeps playing like this, I mean, forget about your theory of him playing out next year. That's not going to work. He's going to want some kind of an extension. And then the clock starts. And Russell Wilson is the best example of this. It becomes more difficult to build up the rest of the roster when you have to pay the quarterback. So, one of the things we talked about Howie Roseman's offseason, his ability to bring in all these different players, that changes when you have to pay the quarterback. So you got to take advantage of this short window and try to make a run. And I think the potential is there.
Is there for this year. But let me give you one more. We don't really know yet. We've already thrown a couple of those out there. The Eagles, under Jeffrey Lurie's ownership, under Howie Roseman's general managership, have been able to get their quarterback deals done when they wanted or needed to get their quarterback deals done. But we've got a whole new ball game here, and his name is Deshawn Watson, who the Philadelphia Eagles wanted in the worst way and just couldn't get to convince him to come here to Philadelphia. But he's kind of thrown everything into a tizzy. Bisciotti is willing to pay down there in Baltimore. They like Lamar Jackson down there in Baltimore. Why shouldn't they? He was great in a loss just this past Sunday against Baltimore. They can't get a deal done. Why? Because they don't want to reproduce the Deshaun Watson contract. Yeah. And Lamar's drawing his line in the sand and saying, Oh, no, I'm every bit the player Deshawn Watson is, and I haven't assaulted anybody, sexually assaulted anybody. You better believe I want every last guaranteed dollar that he got. And the Ravens haven't been able to get that contract done. We don't know how Howie Roseman and Jeff Lurie are going to deal with Jalen Hurts if he says, yeah, I'm going to kind of need 220 of that $240 million guaranteed. I'm going to need that same exact thing because what Deshaun Watson, because by the end of the year, we'll know Deshaun Watson has come in and went, how many games is he going to play? Sitting 13? So he's going to play 14, 15, 16, 17. He's going to come in and go 2-2, and the Browns are going to finish 7-10, and it's going to have all gone for naught in year number one. And then Jalen's going to have a sit down and go, oh, yeah, I'm more important to the Philadelphia Eagles than Deshaun Watson is to the Cleveland Browns. So let's start our negotiation there and go from that on.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. It's a very short window, and you have to take advantage of it. And you look at it from that perspective, Jody. You know, the NFC East is bad. The NFC isn't as good as the AFC. The stars are aligned. Got to take advantage of this short window.
And the Philadelphia Eagles are one of only 6 teams in the NFL that are 2-0. We're only 2 weeks into the season. We've already cut it down from 32 to 6. I know week 1, we had to cut it from 32 to 16. Actually, we cut it from 32 to 15 because 2 teams tied. But we are down to just 6 teams that are 2-0. And one of them is the Philadelphia Eagles. Our next guest is jumping in to talk about the Birds with us. You listen to him when you go down the shore from 97.3 ESPN, the Sports Bash. Mike Gill going to jump aboard here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Action News at 11 with Rick Williams. It's the team you trust to bring it all together. The stories that impact your community. A sports roundup for the locals. And the AccuWeather forecast you depend on. Action News at 11 with Rick Williams.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up, and go Birds.
Welcome to Pondley Hockey. We've helped over 100,000 injured and disabled workers obtain benefits, as well as some of the biggest settlements in the state. If you've been injured at work, give Pondley Hockey a call.
You got Mac McMullen and McDonald here with you on Birds 365. We are joined by our short contributor. He's got his hands on the finger of the pulse of the Eagles as much as anybody else, even though he gets sand in his shoes. We appreciate whenever Mike Gill jumps aboard with us here on Birds 365. All right, MG, I'm going to hit you with an easy one to start. The thing that impressed you most about the Philadelphia Eagles victory over the Minnesota Vikings on Monday night was what?
I mean, it's hard not to say the way Jalen Hurts played, right? I mean, that's pretty easy. But I guess I'll be a little off base here and go, I thought the defense, John Gannon's defense, who's more criticized than John Gannon? I think he has overtaken. You guys are wrestling guys. I mean, John Gannon has gone off the top of the top rope and just elbow smashed Howie Roseman in terms of hatred in this town.
Yeah,
so
he's a heel.
Defense, he made a heel turn, man. He is now for at least 1 week. I thought he had maybe the most impressive night. They sent pressure at times when they generally don't. They sent it from places where you don't see them up the middle a lot. They had TJ Edwards coming on the blitz. I thought they designed and hid that pretty well. I have been begging. I said, listen, you got Darius Slay. You got James Bradbury. You got Avonte Maddox. Those are three guys you should trust. Send guys and trust those guys. And for 1 week, he did it. So I'll go John Gannon is my top of the pie.
There you go.
Now, here, and I agree with you. I was just talking about that with Jody. I think he put together an excellent game plan for the opponent. Now, that you just voiced one of my concerns, Mike. He did. He brought pressure up the middle way more than he usually does, and that's because of the other side. You don't get Garrett Bradbury every week. Now, since he is coming, I talked about it on your show. People are probably sick of me. I mentioned this guy can't pass block. He's been in the league for this is his 4th year. He's been either the worst or the second worst pass blocking center in pro football by Pro Football Focus. He can't pass block. Jonathan Gannon knew that, saw that, took advantage of it. My concern is the people expect him to do that every week because if you do it against a good center, you're going to get stoned, and all of a sudden your corner's out there on an island. Then you have some issues.
And I guess
understand that.
A question that I would have moving forward is, okay, you showed that you can do this. You showed that you can dial one up, not all the time, but in spots. I mean, it's 3rd down in the goal line, red zone area, 24-7. You can have a little bit more chutzpah, but he sends a little pressure. The next evolution would be, when am I going to see Hassan Reddick just rip off and just go? When is he going to get on the edge and just be able to take off after the quarterback? I don't know that we've really seen a game or a series or even a play where he has just stood up. I'm coming after you. Here I come. And I think that would be the next kind of wrinkle that they really should try to add. Then you can have, where's Reddick? Are they going to come up the middle? Avonte Maddox, am I getting a corner blitz? Like, you've got to start to add. And I think we take for granted sometimes that these coaches are going to show everything in the playbook every single week. They got to try to
Now, that to follow up on that, week 1, you had Decker and Sewell. Week 2, you had O'Neal and Darisaw. So that was a strength for each team. The edge. That affects Hassan Reddick. As you move forward, Washington this week, it's Charles Leno and Sam Cosmi. Not as good. Maybe that's in the game plan this week for Hassan Reddick. That's what Jody was saying. I agree with him here, and I want your thought on this, Mike. A lot of fans don't look at the other team when they look at game planning's about the other team. Right. If you're going to bang your head on the wall against Brian O'Neill, well, you're banging your head on the wall. So you take advantage of Garrett Bradbury.
Right.
That's smart.
This was really the story of the two tales of these two teams is, well, Minnesota's got better skill players than Detroit does. Well, Detroit's better up front than Minnesota is. So it kind of, you look at, and I talked about this yesterday, is you look at the Eagles' schedule. They're not going to be an underdog maybe the rest of the year. I mean, I can't find a game maybe at Arizona in a couple of weeks, but other than that, maybe at Dallas if Dallas gets Dak back and they're playing well. But how many games are they going to be an underdog? Now, that doesn't mean they're going to win every single game. What it says is some of these teams, even though they're not better than you talent-wise, match up better with you. The matchups are there where they can kind of give you issues. If you have a team that's strong on the tackles and the Eagles can't get their pass rush with the 4, they don't like the blitz, there's a team that could, even though they're not better than you, give you a challenge. Those are the type of things. Now, why Reddick, did get some stand-up rushes, that's not something that they kind of focused on this week because they know, as you said, John, that's not where the matchups were for them. So now I'd like to see them kind of peel the onion another layer as they don't have to face tackles who are as astute moving forward here. So, yes, the matchups hopefully dictate some of the way they game plan week in and week out, which shouldn't be the same.
While we give Jonathan Gannon credit for pushing all the right buttons on Monday night, and he did, I said with John first segment, and you got to give the same credit to Shane Steichen, maybe more so because he had 2 good weeks. Gannon's had 1 bad, 1 outstanding. Shane Steichen's been damn good 2 weeks in a row because he's had that great run-pass ratio balance. They throw it, they run it, you don't know exactly what's coming. He's kept the other defenses off balance with how his play calling has gone. Is Shane Steichen not getting enough credit for what he's done the first couple games?
Well, it's a good question, Jody, and I don't think many people even know who Shane Steichen is number one. I mean,
they know who Jonathan Gannon is. He's the equivalent of Jonathan Gannon, the most hated man in Philadelphia, you just told me.
Right. Well, Steichen, I thought the first drive was one of those things like, are they really reading and listening to Birds 365 and listening to all the airwaves of, well, they didn't spread the ball around enough. All right, we didn't spread the ball around tonight. I'll throw it to every guy in the stadium. How do you like that? I thought the first drive was just a perfect way to open that up. It was executed perfectly. Look, it all comes down to execution, too. If Jalen Hurts, I thought, was excellent on that first drive. Decisive, great throws, good decisions, put the ball right where it needed to be, and it made Shane Steichen look like he knew what he was doing for this week. But, yeah, I agree with you, Jody. I thought the game plan – and, look, this is one of the few teams in the league that can use balance because the line means everything. Some of these teams can't do that because they don't have the ability to pass block. Their tackles get whipped. You know, we watch Giant games over the year. They can't do that. Their tackles just can't hold up for a game. They're not good enough run blocking, so they can't run the ball. So I think the Eagles' offensive line allows Steichen to go deeper in the playbook than most coordinators can because he feels comfortable that we can pass block and run block, and you saw it in the first half. The second half, I really liked how they came out and tried to run that run, and then they threw that wonky screen that Gainwell went off of his hands. But they have the ability. That's their formula. 24/7, second half, run the ball, shorten that second half. And I don't think this is now, I think they have the ability to put up more points if they so choose. And I asked you, John, yesterday, like, were you a little that they kind of took their foot off the gas after doing it in week 1? They took the foot off the gas in week 1 and it bit them. They kind of took the foot off the gas.
We got a little frozen, Mike Gill.
Yes.
We'll see if we can get Mike back. Shocker, by the way, while Mike was talking there. Darius Slay, NFC Defensive Player of the Week.
Nice.
So 2 weeks, two awards. Zach McPherson, week 1, was Special Teams Player of the Week. Darius Slay, Defensive Player of the Week. So it's going to be somebody on offense. We were just talking about the offense, Jody. The offense leads the NFL, so you would think that there would be plenty, and Jalen Hurts could be, and we got Mike back.
He's moving. He's giving us the scenic view. That's what we like.
The tour.
Sorry, my laptop died.
Oh, there we go. The tour of Castle Gill down the shore. Darius Slay, NFC
isn't that one of the
Player
families on House of Dragons?
Yes,
Castle Gill, I believe so.
Not familiar with that show, Jody.
It's HBO 9 o'clock Sunday nights. That's all you need to know. It's the best show that HBO throws up every week.
We were talking about the offense, so I want to stick with you there, Mike, in the fact that, Jody has mentioned the balance. It's easy to have balance when you're up 17 every week. I do think the Eagles did take their foot off the gas. Now, there were a couple plays.
You all right with that?
No, I'm not, but I didn't get the feeling the Irv Smith drop. For instance, if he catches that and that's a touchdown, I think the Eagles have a sense of urgency.
Can I add to that, John?
The block field goal, real quick. The block field goal, Jody. Sense of urgency if that gets returned. But go ahead.
The Irv Smith block. You know who didn't get credit for that? At least not on the broadcast. Maybe you guys talked about it in the press box. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was coming over. He was a little late. He didn't quite get there, but he did get his hand up. And I think that's why Irv Smith dropped that ball, because he, I think, affected his vision right before the ball hit his hands. And that's a reason why he dropped that. You got to get there, and Chauncey Gardner didn't. But he dropped it. He gave it his best effort. He dropped the ball.
He's dropped it because he's wearing 84 in Minnesota, which is sacrilegious. There's no way you hand 84 to Irv Smith Jr. Come on.
You got to make that play as an NFL player, and he's supposed to be a good tight end. You got to make that play. I hear what you're saying. You have a little bit in your vision, but that's an easy catch for an NFL player. My point is, I never got the feeling if the Vikings made a play, the interception as well, the Kenny Gainwell drop, if they made a play and scored a touchdown, I think the sense of urgency would have been back. There was no evidence that defense could stop the Eagles' offense whatsoever. I think they just would have put the foot back on the gas and it would have been fine. But my point is, moving forward, Mike, at some point, I don't know, you mentioned the schedule. We all know the schedule looks light on paper. At some point, you're going to be tested. You're going to be behind. That, to me, is going to say a lot about this team. What do they do playing from behind? That changes everything, and that's the one big hurdle I want to see.
Well, and it's a good point, and the question will be, how's that team defending you when you're alive? A lot of times we see these teams do what the Vikings did. Hey, we'll let you catch the ball in front of us and try to make tackles. Are the Eagles much more equipped now offensively to say, you want to give us underneath? I'll throw the ball to A.J. Brown. He's going to break a tackle and bust one for 40 yards. They didn't really have that guy in the past. So the ultimate chess matches get kind of more interesting when you have more talent. The Eagles didn't have the talent to play from behind because I'll let you catch the ball underneath. I'll come up and whack you and you're going to go right down. No yak Zach, right? Now you got guys who are going to break tackles and make big plays. And that's how in the NFL we see every week. 31-17 quickly changes. We saw Miami come back. I don't know what the hell the score was when they were down.
Well, that Miami game, I was talking about that, Mike. Do you think the Eagles can come back from that kind of poor start and win that type of game? That to me is still a question that needs.
Who are they playing against?
Well, that's part of it as well,
right?
But Baltimore's pretty Dallas, good. If you're playing Baltimore, Dallas, Baltimore's pretty good. If you're playing Baltimore, because remember, there's both ends of that spectrum. You got to stop Lamar Jackson. You got to come back with all the offense.
Here might be my response, guys. And I pondered this yesterday. I think we saw now the ceiling of what Jalen Hurts can be. Is he going to be that every week? No. But now that game is there. Now can I get consistency to approach that game, right? Can I get consistency to approach that level? I'm not going to get to that level, but can I have consistent week in and week out approaches to that game? If he plays like he did on Monday night, this league's in some trouble. How do you figure out what to do? Decisive, quick, accurate, show the ability to throw the ball down the field, got escapability. I mean, you almost were like, whoa, I'm watching a completely different player than what I saw for a year and 4 games.
You're right.
6 games now.
He's extended the ceiling. Now can we lessen the floor? Can we bring that floor level up that when he doesn't have the kind of game that he had last week, it's not dropping through the floor? One other note on the point that John was making about the Eagles and their abilities on offense. Are we once again guilty of not factoring in the opponent enough? Is there any chance that Ed Donatel, who reacted and changed zero in the first half, nothing, he just kept doing the same exact thing, play in and play out, the Eagles hadn't asked for it, and they went up and down the field. Maybe he just at halftime actually said, maybe I should change some things and do some things differently. Do we give the Vikings no credit for the Eagles going scoreless in the second half?
I think
Yes
the
and no.
sense of urgency, my perspective, the sense of urgency had more to do with it than any changes.
I think the play calling was significantly more conservative in the second half, and yet they ran the ball with very good success still. I hated the play call. They Hurts had like a design run on a third down. I'm thinking, what are you doing? 24-7, like.
Yeah,
later on in the game.
I said the same thing, Mike. I said, what?
It was just a conservative play call, and it's like I trust this guy just to not take a hit and get down. So, like, I felt like the play calling was a lot more conservative in the second half.
I don't know if you can ever describe a Jalen Hurts called run play as conservative.
I was questioning.
I have trouble saying that.
I have questioning more why they've had Jalen Hurts on the design run call with the game well in hand. They
trust him not to fumble more than they trust Miles Sanders not to fumble.
But now to Jody's point, I'm going to throw this stat at you, and this is a reason, and people are going to call me a hater, but whatever. They always call me a hater. This is why I temper something on Jalen Hurts. So this is from Next Gen Stats, the NFL's own, advanced analytics site. The average NFL receiver got 2.9 yards of separation last week. Dallas Goedert, 5.3. Zach Pascal, 4.82. Quez Watkins, 4.63. A.J. Brown, 3.72. These guys were wide open by NFL standards. That was my eye test. I said, this is amazing how open these receivers are. Jalen Hurts is a good football player. He should be hitting these guys with ease. I mean, that's not going to happen every week, though.
It's the effect of, and it happened on the Irv Smith drop, is the attention went to Jefferson. When he crossed the eye plane of the safety got stopped for a second and saw Jefferson and said, oh, there's Justin Jefferson. And that's what happens. When A.J. Brown is now on the field, these guys have less attention on them all over. Now
A.J. was wide open. You think A.J.'s getting all – A.J., 3.72, and he's getting all the attention. Now it's incumbent coverage. That's all I'm saying.
I'll take Gil's point. I'll take Gil's point and run with it, though, because I think he's right. He just got a narrow focus in the other direction. It's not A.J. Brown. It's Jalen himself. The other defensive backs have to be aware that, this guy could tuck and run and turn up.
Yeah.
The one time they didn't do it, who was on him? I forget. Jesus. Who was on Goddard on the Hurts touchdown?
I don't know.
Yeah, one of the safety, I think,
might have been me in the press box. I was closer.
No, the safety was actually right there. He was staring at Goddard. He had his back turned to Jalen Hurts.
Yeah,
That's why Jalen turned it up and said, shoot, I'm going to try and score a touchdown. He could have just danced out of bounds for the first down. He said, this guy isn't even looking at me.
Goddard.
On that particular play, it wasn't the kind of defense they've been playing all day.
No, Goddard was in motion and went out like he was, and then just kept pushing the guy, and the guy was following him as if he was guarding him. And Hurts just said, "Okay, I'll follow you guys up the sideline." But that guy never turned. Right, Goddard just kept pushing him down the field, and that was a hell of a run. I'm watching the game.
Yeah,
with high school.
That was a hell of a run.
Yeah, I'm watching the game with my girlfriend's son. He's 16 years old in high school, and he's saying, how do 4 grown men not pull down another guy like that? And I said, it's just, absolute will. He willed himself to get into the end zone at that point.
And the one knucklehead is trying to strip him at the 2-yard line instead of trying to bring him down. So,
see a lot of that.
Yeah.
Marcus Epps is becoming notorious for trying to be the guy who comes in with the shoulder and jar the ball out and not wrap. He's doing that a lot.
Well, to finish this point, because Tone asked, doesn't that just mean the receivers are that good? No, to Tone, no. The average NFL, that's my point. That changes this week. The Eagles have very good receivers. Don't get me wrong. Those numbers I just gave you are absurd, are absurdly poor. And that's kind of my point. That's not going to be the normal way of doing things. That's why the NFL does these next gen stats. The NFL average of separation, that's generally where you're going to be. Maybe you have great receivers, you have a little bit more. You don't have 2.9 to 5.2. That's not going to happen this week. I guarantee it. And Washington doesn't even have a great defense.
No, they don't.
But it's going to be better than that. So it becomes more difficult. That's why I'm saying, people, look, the other side was really, the Eagles played really well. The other side played really, really poorly. So,
well, let me ask you this, John. I know you covered the Vikings for a couple of years and know that team pretty well. Where in the NFC pantheon do they lay? Are they a middle-of-the-road team? Is that a playoff team? You got 7 playoff teams, so, I mean, they may be a 7, but I don't know. Is that a team that you're like, hey, that's one of the better teams in the conference?
No. That is I just tell Jody, that's going to be a bottom 10 defense at best. I think Detroit's more talented now. I think Green Bay, even though they beat Green Bay in week 1, I think Aaron Rodgers will figure it out. Aaron, you know, I've been talking to you forever. You know how much respect I have for Aaron Rodgers. Jody knows it too. He will figure it out.
Well, and what we get lured into in this fantasy football world is that Minnesota has fantasy stars all over the place.
Exactly.
So therefore, they must be a good team. And that's why I asked that question to kind of put it in perspective, John, is Minnesota a really good team? Not necessarily. They have some really good skill players, but overall, they're probably a middle-of-the-road team, 9-8, 8-9.
Yeah, and a lot, I don't know what Kevin O'Connell is. Nobody does. I know he had a bad game in Philadelphia. He's a rookie head coach. That happens. Maybe he figures it out. Maybe they're a little bit better from that perspective. They should be a borderline wild card team.
Hey, I'll say this. Somebody's getting in. The Giants, Detroit, somebody that had because if Minnesota's not getting in, maybe Arizona. I mean, I do a segment called Who's In, Who's Out, where I try to pick the 14 playoff teams. It's hard, man. It is hard to find a 7th team in each conference to make the playoffs. You're getting to the point where you have to consider Detroit, the Giants, I don't know, probably Arizona. I think you're getting to that level of team. If Minnesota's not one of them, you're really dropping down to that level.
As I said, they'll be in the conversation to be that last wild card. So they might, but they're not a great team. They're not a terrible team. The Eagles deserve credit. They played very, very well. I'm just saying, just pump the brakes a little bit, because there are larger tests moving forward, starting this week, from a team that people would say on paper isn't as good, but they know the Eagles, they know how they play, they're going to be better prepared. And I think this week's going to be a more difficult matchup for the Eagles than
Minnesota. I disagree with you on that one, Mike. I think the NFC is easy to figure out. Look at the 7 teams that made it last year. And if you got to add someone from the outside in, I put New Orleans in. Now, the Tampa defense did a really good job against them the other day. They made Jameis 2022 look like Jameis 2019. He coughed it up a bunch of times. But, I can tell you who the teams are going to be in playoffs in the NFC. It's going to be the same teams as last year. And New Orleans will supplant someone else.
Well, Dallas made it last year. That would be one possibly, if depending on Dak. They looked pretty good defensively last week, obviously. This week, the Giants-Dallas game should be pretty interesting. But, look, I just feel like there's not a lot of – even on the other side. I mean, the AFC's got a couple teams at the top, but trying to find the 7th team, I was like, my gosh. I mean, I guess Denver right now would be – but they don't look all that special.
Yeah, but I mean, it is early, and somebody's gonna get better.
Sure,
as
it
the
all
season
will be
moves.
fluid.
Yeah, and some teams are gonna move on. So I'm gonna give. I mentioned this before. Our buddy Jeff Kerr, and to give Jeff credit, he did say regular season games, but he put up Jalen Hurts' stats in his last 5 regular season starts. They're just phenomenal, and the Eagles are 5-0. But there was another game over that span, and that was the playoffs in Tampa Bay. And Todd Bowles, I'm surprised nobody's looked at that film and said, all right, this is how we do it. Now, maybe they think they don't have the talent to pull it off, and that's potential. Does that Todd Bowles game plan worry you at all? Or
I don't know. Everybody's using Vic Fangio's defense. So for whatever reason, they haven't matriculated over to Todd Bowles' defense at this point. I don't know why. I will throw this into the mix. There's a guy who listens to my show who hates the Eagles, and he said, I don't know why everyone's so excited. They lost on prime time games by an average of 16.5 points last year.
What is that?
Does that show? I said, what does that have to do with anything? But does it show the difference between where this team was and where this team is that they've made huge strides talent-wise, so that the 16.5 points a game last year doesn't mean skedaddle, right?
Well,
they have upgraded the roster significantly.
That's like saying they're winning by 17 points on primetime games this year by an average.
Right.
Yeah. They played one so far.
Yeah.
All right. One other guy I think we got to throw some props to, and John just kind of rained on his parade that the Vikings left them as open as they did. Dallas Goedert, again, has had 2 good games in a row, started the season with outstanding production. We knew that he was going to be one of those key guys. What is it that the head coach likes to say, John? In order, we go from AJ
Dallas, AJ Dallas Devontae is what the Eagles' progression scale is.
And then once again, we're going to throw it over the top to Quez. That's all you need to know. And, the Goddard is not only going to be open, but he's going to make the catch. And he's going to turn it upfield and get more yards after the catch, which is something that he is certainly better in than Zach Ertz. We all love Zach Ertz, but that was never his strong suit, yards after catch.
Although he did have the first drop of the night on maybe the best pass of the day.
Yeah. That wasn't a drop. That got stripped out. One of the few times Viking defenders were near Dallas Goedert.
Jody, I am a huge Goddard fan. In fact, last year when they traded Ertz, I thought that there was a chance he could get to 1,000 yards. They kind of he was on pace to start to get there, a little off, but towards the end he faded a little bit. But I think right now he's one of the premier receiving guys in the league. You saw he can block. They like him blocking as well. He's a tremendous weapon in this offense. I think people forget, he was a second-round pick, and it gets lost in the sauce because Ertz was here and he didn't get right on the field and burst out. But this guy has got a ton of talent, and as you mentioned, he can catch. He can run after the catch. Last year, I think he had the highest average yards per catch for tight ends in the league. He's a big play guy. He's a tremendous weapon that just gets kind of overshadowed, I think, because, Ertz was here when he got here, so he didn't make an immediate 1,000-yard impact. But I think if you featured him and he could probably be a 1,000-yard tight end.
I got this from our buddy Ruben Frank stats this morning. Last year, he was the number 1 tight end, average yards per target. This year, he's the leading receiver in the National Football League. Not tight end, any receiver, yards per target. He's numero uno in the NFL. So as good as he was last year, he's better this year.
And Jody said I was hating on Dallas Goedert. No, I say Dallas Goedert. And you remember, Jody, when I did my top 25 Eagles, who was number 1? Number one was Dallas Goedert.
You were hating on Goddard?
You just said I was hating on Dallas Goedert because of the Vikings not. And I always say Dallas Goedert is always open.
No, I said you were hating on all the wide receivers. I did not individually pick out Goddard.
And he's always open. He's just not always going to be open by 5 yards average. Does
he have a sign hanging in his locker?
Always open. AJ's open. The Eagles receivers.
Does Goddard have one? Does Goddard have the sign?
Not yet, but he probably could.
Pretty soon, you're going to need to be handing out signs to everybody because you're not going to be able to pick who to defend. Look,
and by the way, same people in Miami I've seen, and Jody knows, good friend Alan Poupert covers the Dolphins, not the biggest Tua fan. People are saying the same thing down there.
Can you text him this week and ask him how the crow tastes for him? Will you do that for me, please?
Well, same name, a lot of open receivers, a lot of blown coverages. That has been a theme in the NFL, blown coverages over the first couple of weeks. And it's interesting for all these teams that play zone. Why are you playing so much zone if the design is to be safe when everybody's blowing coverages?
Blown coverages anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I think we also asked on Friday, can Devonta Smith, if needed, if they said we're going to take Brown out of the game, it looked like he's a guy who can get himself open, step up, make catches, keep the chains moving. So I think that was another question that got kind of answered in the game, is that Smith is pretty darn good as well.
Oh, yeah.
All right, last one for me, Mike.
About that, Mike. Never worried about that. Devonta's a very good receiver.
Last one for me, Mike Gill. Darius Slay was just named. John told us for the 20 seconds that your screen went down on us. He noticed that Darius Slay got Defensive Player of the Week, as well he should have. Kirk Cousins foolishly continued to try and throw at Mr. Slay on Monday night. Thank you very much, Kurt. That's why you are the definition of an average quarterback in the National Football League. Will Carson Wentz do the same? Does Carson try and bully ball his way to getting plays against Slay and pay the same price that Kirk Cousins did?
Well, if he doesn't, he'll do it at least one time. I mean, he could be blitzing everybody most of the game, and then in that moment, I'm sure he'll look at Slay's way one time at least, and that could be the moment because, Wentz John, you might have brought this up yesterday. I don't remember who it was, but said, Wentz is the second most productive quarterback in the league right now behind Tua. He's had a pretty good start in terms of piling up the yards, the touchdowns, but he keeps making that one mistake in the game, which has kind of hampered him in the second part of his, tenure. I mean, that 2020 season was such I don't know. I mean, he hasn't been that bad. Last year in Indianapolis, he wasn't that bad. 2020, he was just horrendous.
Yeah. I don't know what happened. I still don't know what happened.
Yeah, he has been more of the 18, 19, 21 version of himself. And I don't know that we'll ever in fact, I'm pretty confident in saying we'll never see the 2017 version of him. But in 16, 18, 19, 21, you saw a guy that can make throws, make plays, but have an occasional mistake. And I would imagine that will probably be a possibility again this weekend.
Yeah, and it might be the difference in the game. At Mike Gill Show. Follow Mike on Twitter, the Sports Bash, every day, 2 to 6. I'm on there Monday through Thursday, 3 o'clock. So tune in for that if you're down the shore. Let's get you out of here on a Commander's question. Terry McLaurin, for whatever reason, I've always thought he's one of the best receivers in football. One of the reasons why so much upheaval at the quarterback position keeps producing, no matter who it is, production. If he was ever with a high volume quarterback, and Carson Wentz has been that for 2 weeks, we'll see if it continues. How good is Terry McLaurin?
Oh, big fan. And I like Dotson on the other side now, too. Logan Thomas is a tight end. They've got some weapons. I don't think they flash. They don't jump off the page like Jefferson, Thielen, Dalvin Cook. But I think he's better than it's hard to say right now that anybody's better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. But I think he's like a notch above where he is in terms of speed and a playmaker. Their problem, as you mentioned, is they haven't had anybody consistently be able to get them the ball. So Wentz is putting up some numbers there. I think the disappointment for them, I like McLaurin. Their run game is iffy. Their line is okay. I've been disappointed for 2 years now with that defense. I don't know. That defense 2 years ago, looked like they were going to be something special. And I know Young's hurt, but, man, they put a lot of draft capital into that defense. And that defense got them to the playoffs that year and looked really good. And you're like, oh, man, you're going to have to deal with this defense. And I don't know what has happened to that defense. It is just not this dominating unit that we thought it could be. But McLaurin, yeah, probably, I don't know, what, top 12? Is that good?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I would say, I would agree with that. Borderline top 10. I wouldn't have a problem just leaving him out of the top 10. Very good receiver. I think very underrated because of where he plays.
Right.
As long as Jamison Crowder's not here anymore, I feel like that guy killed us.
It's a good point. He
killed my Jets last year, but that's a whole nother story. And oh, by the way, McLaurin only has 6 catches in the first 2 games. 22 yards a catch, but he's only had 6 catches so far. So
big
a little
play
bit
guy.
of a big play aspect to his season in the first 2 games, his first 2 ever, the count with Carson Wentz. Mr. Gill, always a pleasure, buddy. Thanks for hopping on board. We will talk to you again next week.
All right, guys. See ya.
Thanks, Mike.
Gill from the Sports Bash 97.3 down the shore. John McMullen, Jody McDonald, your Mac and Mac guys. Hour number 2, we're going to have Kevin Kincaid from Crossing Broad. Whenever KK hops aboard, he brings a unique perspective, not a beat guy, not a regular columnist guy, what they do over at Crossing Broad. A little bit different, a little bit more fun. We'll have some fun with Kevin Kincaid next hour here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Action News at 11 with Rick Williams. It's the team you trust to bring it all together. The stories that impact your community. A sports roundup for the locals. And the AccuWeather forecast you depend on. Action News at 11 with Rick Williams.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
Welcome to Pondley Hockey. We've helped over 100,000 injured and disabled workers obtain benefits, as well as some of the biggest settlements in the state. If you've been injured at work, give Pondley Hockey a call.
John McMullen and Jody McDonald make up your Mac and Mac Birds 365 guys here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Check out Johnny's missives at JAKIBsports.com. And yeah, we throw this out there every once in a while. What do we need to ask them to do, John?
Like, share, subscribe. 367 strong. Like, share, subscribe.
And we'll continue for another 365. Johnny's going to 1,365 already. I can't get there yet. No, I can't look that.
Now, that's
far
how many listeners are live right now. I think we set a record yesterday, Jody. I'm not official. Live viewers. I don't recall ever getting that high, but
yeah,
could be wrong.
The number got up pretty good yesterday. It's quite understandable after the Eagles played the way that they did. And what we do after every Eagles single game, and we did it without getting real formal about it yesterday. We certainly did it by giving our opinions on what looked good in the Eagles' dominant win. We graded out their performance yesterday. We nitpicked a little bit on a couple of things, but that's what we do here on Birds 365. We try and keep the balance, much like Shane Steichen's perfect balance of run-pass ratio. We try and do the same with giving credit, and we had to give more credit than questions because they won as dominantly as they did. But we pointed out a couple of things that could have been better. But there's one guy in town. We love him. We have him on with us. He's always great. But when I saw this morning, I said, whoa. What the hell are you talking about? John McMullen, what would you give the Philadelphia Eagles a grade for Monday night versus the Vikings in special teams play? A+ to F.
I give them a D. Only because Aaron Cepas chased down Chris Boyd, who runs a 4.45, by the way, to give you an indication. I looked it up. That's what he ran coming out of college. So he's not a slow guy. Now, he had to gather himself. Obviously, over foot race, he's not catching him, but Aaron's very athletic for a punter. But, man, the kickoff returns were terrible. Letting up the block kick, especially Noah Tungiai for being elevated for his blocking, Jody. That was kind of an issue. So yeah, I mean, that was the one part of the performance I didn't love. That and the penalties. And that was about it.
Our buddy Dave Zangaro gave the Eagles a B on special teams.
B. I love Dave. How's he giving him a B? Did I miss something?
It had to all be tied to the Cepas tackle. Because other than that, how do you possibly look at that game and go, oh, they were okay? Yeah, the Vikings didn't break one on defense. They were able to hem in Jalen Reagor. So what? Everybody hems in Jalen Reagor. That's nothing to be proud of. They were bad on special teams.
Anytime you give up a block kick, I mean, that's bad. That's bad. Number one. And then I just can't get over the thought process on the kickoff return. So maybe I'm being too harsh, but
no, you're not. I thought I was looking at C-D myself and couldn't believe what I saw.
Look, here's what I said. When I watched Gannon and I watched the game again, and Fran Duffy, give credit, who does a great job with the film stuff for Eagles.com, he put up a bunch of clips of the zero blitzes. Every single one of them went straight up the middle to take advantage of Garrett Bradbury. And I give Jonathan Gannon a ton of credit for that. A ton of credit for identifying the weakness, exposing the weakness, and really doing a good job for his team. On the other end of that spectrum, Minnesota said, you know what? This guy's terrible. We're going to use this mortar kick, and we're going to pin the Eagles back. Now, it didn't matter because they couldn't do anything defensively. But imagine if they were a good defensive team, and you're starting every drive inside the 20, and you've got to drive full fields because your stinking kick returner can't do anything. I got a problem with that because you have Boston Scott. Now, would you prefer to have a game-breaking threat who can take it to the house? Yeah, but you don't. So just use the guy who can be competent and do the job. I have a real problem that the Eagles won't pull that trigger because Quez Watkins, hey, great play on offense, can run by people. He can't run through people. And if he can't run through people, you can't be a kick returner in this league. Eagles have to recognize that.
And while we give the Eagles credit for, like Jonathan Gannon, bringing his blitzes up the middle, recognizing a weakness on the other team, that's why Minnesota didn't kick it out of the back of the end zone.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
why they dropped that kick in on the 4-yard line every single time, because they know, all right, well, we don't believe they're going to break one on it, so we've got a chance to pin them certainly less than 25 and maybe inside the 20. Oh, yeah, that's exactly what happened, because Quez he's not going to be able to run through a tackle.
Yeah. And they took advantage of it. And if they had, that's what I'm saying, Jody, if they had a decent defense, people would have been complaining, oh, the Eagles had to start inside the 20 every single time. That was the plan from Minnesota. They executed that small part of their particular plan to perfection, and they did it because they saw a weakness. The Eagles should see that same weakness and put Boston Scott back there.
Well, one other guy in addition to McMullen, McDonald, and a good percentage of you Eagle fans, there are still some of the Jalen Hurts. I won't call them haters. I'll just call them doubters instead out there, even after that outstanding performance on Monday night. One guy who's come around is the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, on his
Jerry Sprighton
radio show said, and I wasn't looking forward to playing the Philadelphia Eagles with a quarterback who's making things happen. They're going to be able to give us all that we can handle. Oh, yeah, the Eagles are across the board, but specifically at the quarterback position. And they play in week number 6. Jerry is all but guaranteed that Dak Prescott will be back by then. I don't know. Did you see this, John? And I apologize for I need to take better notes when I'm trolling, going through Twitter. Somebody yesterday posted that Jerry was optimistic that Dak could play this week. I saw it. It said week 3. This upcoming week is week 3. I think he retracted that on his radio show, and I think he said 3 weeks. He'll miss 3 weeks. So he'll be ready for week number 4.
Yeah.
And the Giants play the Cowboys this week and Washington the next week. What'd you say? Sorry.
I was told that same thing. I had not heard it. I was asked that on a different show. And
I know I saw it somewhere on Twitter. Somebody said Jerry Jones believes that Dak can be back as soon as week number 3, which would be next week. And this is a surgery that usually knocks you out for 6 to 8 weeks. And Dak was going to be back in 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, Jerry, to my knowledge, is not a doctor.
Don't tell Jerry that.
I'm sure he is hopeful. Look, I think that would do more harm than good, to be honest. I mean, if you're pushing the guy back on the field that quickly from that type of injury, you're probably more susceptible for re-injury, all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, Jerry, look, it must be fun to cover the Dallas Cowboys because, I mean, there are no other owners who speak after games. There are no other owners who do weekly radio spots. And he says whatever the heck he wants to say, no matter who he contradicts, what he contradicts. I would not expect Dak Prescott back for week 4. If he is back by week 4, I'm sure he's not going to be ready to be back by week 4. And he's probably playing through something he shouldn't play through. So Jerry's Jerry.
You and I see it exactly the same. He's already skimmed back the fact that he's going to be able to play this week against the Giants. So that's not happened, so you don't have to worry about that. But the week after against the Commanders, if you're an Eagle fan, I absolutely believe you should be rooting for Dak Prescott to play. And for one reason and one reason only. He could re-injure himself.
Yeah.
He's going to be back for the Eagle game. When the injury first took place and the original diagnosis was 6 to 8 weeks, that certainly included week number 6 with the Eagles and the Cowboys. Now it looks like he should be back shorter. And that can happen, that you can have an operation that you don't know exactly how much damage is done. After you do it, you realize it really wasn't that bad. So you shorten up your diagnosis for return. That does happen. I'm not questioning if that's possible, but it sounds a little short to me. And if you're rooting anything, if you're an Eagle fan, let Dak come back. Let's get our hands up. Let's make sure he kisses the ground at least a couple of times and then he is out for that much longer, because I guarantee you, if he has to have the surgery redone, it's not going to be back in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I don't take anything Jerry says after games very seriously. I mean, he tends to get emotional. Then he has sort of that cool down period. Then he does his radio show the next day or a couple days after, and he gets a little bit more sense into him. But with Dak Prescott, and I've said this pretty consistently, if I were the Cowboys, I'd err on the side of caution. I'd make sure he's 100% before he's back out there. And by the way, they won a game with Cooper Rush, and they won a game last year with Cooper Rush. How about letting the guy lose a game before you start panicking? That would be my advice. Not that Jerry would ever listen.
And you were, I don't know if you were tuned to that Cowboy game. Again, we all have our preconceived notions before the games are played, and then we have to reevaluate and maybe give more credit or give less credit depending on what you see. I don't think much of Cooper Rush. He doesn't do anything.
All he does is win games, Jody Mack. All he does is win football games.
And he did it again on Sunday against the Bengals.
Big throw, too, late. Big throw late.
Back into, and the guy was pretty open. But you're right.
Doesn't matter here when guys are running 5 yards open. Doesn't matter here.
That's why I brought it up, because you minimized what the Eagles did because the wide receivers.
I got to minimize it there. I got to minimize it.
Right.
Can't minimize it.
Cooper Rush didn't exactly throw a laser down the field between two defenders into a very tight window. That's not Cooper Rush's forte. But you are right. The guy does find a way to win. He did last year. He came in against Minnesota, filling in for Prescott. Got to win. Came in this week against the Bengals. And one thing about the Bengals, and I did say this, and I think somebody shot me a text or a tweet and said, damn, exact same thing you said on CBS on Sunday night. Joe Burrow, who I'm a fan, had maybe the greatest college football season ever that a quarterback had at LSU, got himself rightfully the number one pick in the draft. Gets the Bengals in his second year after getting hurt year one. And I remember, Mike Tannenbaum, who we had on a year and a half ago when we just started Bird 365. Keep your eye on Joe Burrow, because those quarterbacks with the lower extremity issues, injuries, don't come back the same exact. Burrow comes back and takes the Bengals to the Super Bowl. So Tannenbaum kind of missed the target on that one. But Joe, I got to say this about Burrow. He just refuses to get rid of the football.
Yeah, he does.
Drops back, and he believes that his guy is going to get open, and he's going to have time, and he's going to wait till the exact perfect second to release the football, and then the pocket caves. And he doesn't get out of there. He never throws the football at a time. He never throws the football away. There's a reason why he's the most sacked quarterback in the National Football League. He really does push his offensive line. Every once in a while, you just got to say discretion is the better part of valor. Get it the hell out of there and don't take a 10-yard sack.
Yeah, and I know we got to get to break because Kevin Kincaid's in the green room. But, since Kevin is here, he does his hot takes every once in a while, his hot take columns. I'm going to do one of my pet peeve columns. That's because I got way more than 50. But one of them is that nobody places blame on the quarterback for any pass protection. You heard it week one with the Eagles. Oh, the offensive line was poor. No, you're supposed to get the ball out. They're not supposed to block for 100 seconds. You're supposed to. The quarterbacks have responsibility when it comes to pass protection. You're exactly right with Joe Burrow. Look, not a great offensive line, but he bears some of that blame. There's no question about it.
He is John McMullen. I am Jody McDonald. We are the Mac Bird 365 duo. Up next, our pal Kevin Kincaid from Cross and Board jumping in on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Action News at 11 with Rick Williams. It's the team you trust to bring it all together. The stories that impact your community. A sports roundup for the locals. And the AccuWeather forecast you depend on. Action News at 11 with Rick Williams.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
Welcome to Pondley Hockey. We've helped over 100,000 injured and disabled workers obtain benefits, as well as some of the biggest settlements in the state. If you've been injured at work, give Pondley Hockey a call.
Mac guys, McMullen and McDonald here with you on Bird 365. Always our pleasure when we get Kevin Kincaid from Crossing Broad to join us. He's got the hat, he's got the earbuds in, he's looking good. Yeah. But I'm gonna have to put him on the spot before we ever do anything. KK, you know you're my guy, right?
It's way too early for this question, I think.
Yeah, it might be. Just my judgment over the last, and I go to the site every single day. Who's put up more posts in the last week, 2 weeks, month? You pick choose the time frame you want. You or Kyle Pagan. What happened? You were the guy. You were like 95% of the posts. This guy is muscling in on your action, big guy.
I know. Well, as it should have been. Like, who wants to read a website where I write 95% of the things? There should be more diversity.
I'm good. I was good with that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
97.6.
At one point it was. You know how many stories I've done for Crossing Broad since I joined? I guess it was 2017. It's September 2017. I've done 7,500 something. Not all of them Jody or Pulitzer winners, though. You know, you just drop like a Twitter video in there and you write like 2 sentences and you call it call it a post. You know, but truly the answer is actually I still have the edge on him because he's down doing the videos at the tailgates and he's doing the the Dollar Dog Night promo stuff. So he's been doing more like digital and like expanding our footprint.
Godspeed to him for doing that stuff. I mean,
it was quite the adventure at the tailgate. Yeah. He said it was the drunkest tailgate he's ever been to.
Nice.
Yeah, well, Monday night you got all day to get ready.
Season opener Monday night 1-0. Yeah, it was. I can't even imagine, high bar to clear too for Eagles fans. So
yes, very high bar. Speaking of high bar, where is this team on the pantheon of great teams in NFL history, Kevin? Are we top 10 yet?
Oh man, 2 games in. They could be the greatest team of all time. Well, last week it depends what week you ask me. Last week they could have been the worst defense of all time, and then this week they're. This is, by the way, Jody, why we had John on Crossing Broadcast, because we wanted a pragmatic Eagles personality, none of the knee-jerk stuff. But yes, I mean, what a difference a week makes, right? You know, Jonathan Gannon made adjustments. Jalen Hurts, I don't think it's a hot take to say he looked like Donovan out there at times. And
yeah, he looked great.
Yeah, they were up for it, you know, and you know, you saw the adjustments that were made defensively. You know, offensively, I like the game plan. Not really sure what the Vikings were doing defensively, but
I don't think any of us were.
But. No, but I mean, you take what you can get. I honestly thought that Jalen played his best NFL game.
That I agree. I called it his best professional game, certainly from a passing perspective. Now, but you bring up the opponent, and you have to put that, because I still don't know what Ed Donatel was trying to do. And Next Gen Stats put up something about the Eagles receivers, their separation. The numbers were astronomical. The average was 2.9. Dallas was at 5.4. Zach Pascal was at 4.8. Quez Watkins was at 4.6. AJ Brown was at 3.7. Point I'm trying to make, the receivers were open and they were running free. You know, do we look at the opponent and say that added into it, or we just say, okay, Jalen Hurts was great?
I think you just do a little bit of everything. You know, I mean, they were playing a lot of that kind of soft shell, you know, cover 2 stuff that we were complaining about Jonathan Gannon last year, right? And they still, within that, they still beat him deep on the blown coverage on the Quez Watkins.
It's amazing. All these teams want to play safe, and they blow coverages anyway.
Exactly. So I don't know if they were just trying to keep everything in front of them, or if they were trying to, you know, make Jalen Hurts beat him with his arm, which he did, you know. But it was quizzical to see what they were doing. No real adjustments at halftime. But Jalen, to his credit, took what was given to him, and he worked within that framework of, this is what the defense is showing me, and I'm going to attack it this way. I think that probably, you know, addressed probably the biggest criticism that people had of him, which was coming out of college, was he's a one-read guy. He's going to look for his receiver, and if, you know, CeeDee Lamb or whoever, Charleston Rambo's not there, you know, I'm going to pull it down, take off, you know. So I think he just looked more composed in there. You know, he didn't look as antsy, right? He looked calm and he looked collected, and he was picking out the right guys. It seemed like he was going through his reads. And, you know, it's funny because they do the, you know, the statistic after the game. I think it was something like he was the first Eagles quarterback to go for, or the first quarterback ever, I think, to go for 300 yards, 80% completion, 80 completion percentage, and two rushing touchdowns. It's funny, John, because we that kind of originated in basketball, and I thought a lot of those stats were total BS, because you can just pick like an arbitrary threshold and say, like, well, Robert Covington was the first person to get like 1.2 steals per game, 0.4 deflections, and they normally don't mean anything. But the thing that popped about that was his completion percentage, because you look at the games that Jalen played last year, he had some games where he threw monster stats up there, but he was completing like 55% of his passes, 57% of his passes. So for him to balance out the rushing touchdowns and the rushing performance that he had with just accuracy was the takeaway from what people were saying with that.
Yeah. And I thought his best 2 throws, sorry, Jody, I'm being too wordy. That's my fault. But I thought his best 2 throws were incompletions. His first incompletion, Dallas Goedert. Yeah. Phenomenal throw. And then later there was a penalty. It got brought back. He had a throw to Quez Watkins that was a pretty big gain, 30-something yards down the field.
Was that the rollout to his left? Yes,
rollout to his left. Pinpoint throw. I thought it was ironic. His 2 best throws were incompletions, because one was stripped, one was brought back with penalty.
And that was a really, really good play by the DB on that first one. But again, he kind of just dropped it into a bucket, you know, see the first line and the second line. And can you that's probably one of the hardest NFL throws that there is, to kind of just like put it over top of the first line and sink it in before the safety can get in there. And, you know, credit to the DB for coming in and breaking it up. Yeah. And the second one was, and it's funny because when he's flush from the pocket, he's normally going to his right. You know, he's normally throwing on.
And he's going to his left. Yeah.
So for him
to more impressive.
Right. And it was not the right side that collapsed. He saw it on his blind side, skirted around that guy. Then he pivoted and set and saw Quez Watkins coming. I agree. Yeah. I think it's funny too, because he was, I think before that, John, he was like 12 for 12 for 157 yards. So that was his first. Yeah. The Dallas Goedert play was his first incompletion for sure. But, I don't know. He just looked like he was just playing within himself a little bit more, you know, and he was content to kind of like sit there, like let things materialize. And when he had to go, he had to go. But he also, to pair with that, there were times where he knew he wasn't going to get any of the yardage, and he kind of gave himself up, you know, and didn't push for that. He protected himself, I thought. And I mean, when you combine all of that, to me, I went through the list from last year and the year before, and I couldn't find a better game that he played. I mean, in Arizona in 2020, he put up some monster stats. But I think he had like a 54 completion percentage. And last year, you know, he had some good games on the road. But to go head to head with a decent quarterback, and clearly be the best guy on the night in prime time, I mean, I thought that was a big step for him.
And even his INT was a ball that Kenneth Gainwell could have caught. It went right off his hands. Now, I thought it was a little ill-advised to throw it into the crowd that he did, but he put it on the money, and Gainwell's got to come down with that. And he did.
It did hit him on the hands. Yeah, it did hit him on the hands. The timing of that looked a little bit off. And I mean, on that one penalty too, because people, I know a big topic was the illegal man downfield penalties too. I think on the first one, the timing was just a little bit off on that. But, you know, that's stuff you pick up after a while. Maybe next time he comes around, he just, you know, throws it in the ground and you don't have that. So.
All right. Do want to talk about, I'm going to borrow from my pragmatic partner here, about the CEO coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Nick Sirianni kind of flying under the radar. We've been giving Shane Steichen a ton of props today, deservedly so. Jonathan Gannon got a bunch as soon as the game ended because he went from being the most hated man in Philadelphia to a conquering hero because he blitzed a little bit in game number 2. And meanwhile, the head coach is the guy who's kind of pushing all the buttons. He's giving his lieutenants a lot of leeway, but he's the guy who's running the show. Are we not giving enough credit to the head coach of this 2-0 starting Philadelphia Eagle team?
Well, the sports books are, because they've got him second now for coach of the year. I mean, I know you're only 2 weeks in, but the odds shift every week, and right now it's him and Mike McDaniel at the very top, which is crazy. But I think you have to.
Wow.
Yeah, I think you have to. I think a very mature thing in leadership, a skill that not everybody has, is the ability to take a step back and trust the people who are around you, you know, and let them do their jobs, and you become more of an overseer. It's funny because I've kind of experienced this a little bit over the last year because I got a promotion with the company that owns Crossing Broad. So I have a couple guys I'm responsible for, however you want to label that, right? You could be, you know, up their butt every 5 seconds, telling them, hey, do this, do that, do this. But, you know, if you take a step back and you say, hey, like, we know this person's good. We hired this person for a reason. We believe in this person. Like, they're skilled, you know, like, take a step back, let people do what they've been hired to do, and let them flourish, you know? I think there's something to be said for that. I know people usually look at it as like a negative kind of thing because they're like, well, he's less involved now and they're playing better. But no, I think sometimes, like, to remove yourself from the equation, you know, let other people focus on what they've been hired to do. That kind of lets them take off, you know? And he's last year, Nick Sirianni was a first-time head coach, first-time play caller, first time dealing with the media. I mean, he was taking so much onto his shoulders that sometimes the dispersal of responsibilities just streamlines everything and makes it run better, you know? So I think that's something that people got to focus on when they're talking about the divvying up of responsibilities this year.
Yeah, and I love Jody knows I've been advocating CEO coaches for a long time, and it's so rare. It makes no sense to me. I mean, because most of the NFL is set up, really, you have a head coach who's really a coordinator that deals with the media more than the other coordinator who's sort of the assistant head coach. And you saw it here with Doug Peterson and Jim Schwartz. Doug had nothing to do with the defense. I mean, nothing. When I say nothing, I mean 100% nothing. So, you know, when your name, as Nick Sirianni says, is on everything in the organization, and this goes to Howie Roseman as well from his GM philosophy. Now, he's like, if I'm going to get blamed for Jalen Reagor, I might as well make the decision. That's Howie's philosophy. Yeah, I'm not sure that's the best philosophy. This is not the best time to point out that Howie is sort of taken on more responsibility. I think it was unique that he finally gave out the assistant GM tag. Like, he wouldn't give it to Joe Douglas. He wouldn't give it to Andy Weidel, but he gave it to Alec Halaby, the analytics guy, and John Ferrari, the football sort of rules guy. He won't give it to a personnel guy.
Yeah.
Again, not the best time to say it, Kevin, but I don't think that's the best way to go long term. Whereas Nick Sirianni feels very comfortable in his own skin. All right, you want to give credit to Shane Steichen, give credit to Shane Steichen. I think that's a very positive thing.
I think so too, and I think that you, like, at the very top, you need like a glue guy. You know, a head coach really has to play the role of like a utility kind of like pull it together kind of dude. Here's probably a stupid analogy. It could be a great analogy. Let me try it and we'll find out. But when the Miami Heat won a couple titles back in the day, the stars were LeBron and Chris Bosh and D Wade. You know, but they had Shane Battier on those teams too. If you took that Miami Heat roster and you had them run a business, the best guy at the top to be the organizer and pull it all together and keep everybody working together probably would have been Battier, you know, just because certain people have a skill set for delineating and dividing up responsibilities and being organizers. You know, some people thrive at their certain thing, but they need to be put in an environment where they're able to do that. So oftentimes the person above them becomes a shield for all the like corporate crapola. Hey, I'll deal with the media. I'll deal with this email chain. I'll do this 10 o'clock meeting so you don't have to. And you find out in which situations, in which environments people are successful, and you put them in that environment and you let them do their thing, you know? So I think that's just as important as anything, you know, is knowing when to detach yourself as much as when to involve yourself. Yeah. You know, the push and pull of like, hey, I'm going to get in and I'm going to put my hands on this versus I don't need to because I trust these guys. These guys are good. I know what they're doing. And this is what we hired them to do.
No, I like your analogy a lot. It's
all right. Good.
A little too deep for me.
I don't know why that was the first thing that came to mind. Like Shane Battier was the first dude I thought of. That's pretty weird. But
I believe you were right on point. I'm going to make it a little bit more simplistic here. Carson Wentz Sunday, boos and cheers.
Yeah.
He's going to get them both. But will he be getting more boos from the Commander fans or the Eagle fans because he's doing well? Will he be getting more cheers from the Commander fans or the Eagle fans who are going to be in the house? Because they're going to be in the house down there in D.C. because he's playing poorly. What's Carson's game look like after the fact?
Well, let me answer your question with a question. Do the Commanders really have any fans at this point that are going to be down there? I don't know how much they care. It feels to me like it's going to be one of those Phillies Nationals games from 10 years ago where it was just like, you know, the ballpark was just filled with traveling supporters, you know. But I mean, I think Carson's probably going to have a rough one. You know, I've always just been fascinated about that whole thing because I think like it's very hard to find middle of the road takes when it comes to Carson. Like people either hate his guts and think he's the worst guy on the planet, you know, some North Dakota redneck or whatever. And then the other half, you know, say, hey, there would be no Super Bowl if it wasn't for Carson and what he did for those first, 13 games.
I'm in that category, by the way.
I think so too.
Super Bowl.
No, I think so too. I just don't, and I think John, people have trouble separating what happened in 2017 versus then the drama of the next few years.
Yeah.
I think we just have this like knee jerk reaction to lump all of that together and evaluate it in like a one big vacuum. But I think when you split it out over a certain amount of years, indisputably Carson played a role in bringing this team its first Super Bowl ever, so you have to respect that. That's why I always drew the distinction too between because people ask me, they're like, why do you guys go so hard after Ben Simmons, but you don't go after Carson the same way that you do him? Well, because Ben Simmons totally quit, had nothing to do with winning a title here, and was not playing at an MVP level in 2017. So I don't even know why I get those emails, but they come, but I think he's gonna have a rough one for sure. But their passing offense is low key, pretty damn good. And
it has been so far.
And he's got some diverse kind of different skill set.
Curtis Samuel's back. Yeah.
I think he's
been a high target guy.
Yeah, probably be a little closer than people think. But I mean, if you're asking me from a crowd perspective, I think he's probably gonna hear it from both sides.
How much revisionist history do you think we're going to get this week? I put out the tweet earlier when we talked, everybody's so high on Jalen Hurts. When the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts, it was to be a cost-effective backup or an injury-prone quarterback.
Yeah.
How many people go, the Eagles know what they were doing? How much revisionist history do you think we're going to see?
It's going to be the Super Bowl of revisionist history. This is going to be like the apex of, We keep it pretty low key in like the Crossing Broad, like internal communications channel, but we will go at each other when it comes to the Carson Wentz stuff, because we have a couple guys who just hate him and think he's the scum of the earth. And these are like otherwise like pretty like low key, impartial kind of, jaded and burned out people just like me, but they get like so worked up about Carson Wentz because they just like thought, I guess they felt like they were sold a bill of goods or something. And I don't know what it is, but yes, again, we have to go back and look at the moment. Nobody during that draft thought that was a good draft pick, because even if
Jody liked it.
Okay, well, he was in a very small minority. For the stated
reason, which I couldn't believe that nobody could comprehend, that they were just taking a backup quarterback.
Yeah. And well, I mean, how many teams take a backup quarterback in the second round? Yeah.
Not many. Not many.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to relitigate all of that, but to the point, like, yes, I think it's going to be the Super Bowl of revisionist history, just because everybody had an opinion about that, and I don't even think it's like a legit. I think it's like a I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but it's not even really like a legit argument, because they brought him in to be a backup and not to be the starter. They were committed to Carson at that point, so it's not like it was a pick between the two of those guys kind of thing. Yeah. Luckily, I'm off tomorrow and Friday, so I have removed myself from the conversation.
Yeah, but that gets you back in before Sunday when the game happens. So,
I know. I'm gonna have to do something on the site, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah, and we'll be on the lookout for it. KK, always a pleasure. Appreciate whenever you hop on board with us. Thank you very much for doing so today. And don't tell Pagat that I don't like him, because I do. I think he's good. But I need more Kincaid. I'm sorry. I know I'm putting you to work, buddy, but I think you got to put out some more posts.
We'll work on the ratio. It's football season. This is when every sports media household in Philadelphia pays the bills. So I got to get back on it. I got to get that ratio up.
Yeah, forget run-pass ratio. We need more Kincaid ratio.
More content.
Yeah. Always a pleasure, KK. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, yeah.
All right. See ya.
Kevin Kincaid here with us on Birds 365. And the one other thing about Carson Wentz, and I'm well on the record about this, and some people just refuse to accept this. I'll go to you, Judge McMullen. I was a major Carson backer to start the 2020 season, probably more so because people were so over the top in love with Nick Foles, who, yes, we know delivered a Super Bowl, should never have to buy a beer or a meal here in Philadelphia. We all know what Nick accomplished. But the rest of Nick's career must also be acknowledged, which is inconsistent. Anywhere else other than Philadelphia, completely incompetent.
Yeah.
But people refuse to acknowledge that Nick Foles is the greatest quarterback of all time. He's better than Tom Brady, which just annoyed the snot out of me. So I probably bent over backwards to defend Carson Wentz, just to fend off the Folesian society that were putting him on a pedestal.
Oh, I'm with you with the Foles people. I mean, I got so frustrated with the Foles people. Yeah, you bring up Tom Brady. I mean, come on. I can't even argue with somebody who, and there are plenty of people who would say, "Will he beat Tom Brady?"
Yeah,
I'm like, stop. Please,
you're just Nick Foles did.
Yeah.
So because of that, it probably influenced my backing of Carson Wentz. And the fact that people tell me on the phones, on social media, whatever, oh, you were such a Carson Wentz. You can't now point out that he stinks. Oh, yeah, I can. He stunk. He was the worst quarterback in the NFL in 2020. And what am I going to do? Just continue? Oh, I don't care. I back Carson Wentz. No, at some point, you got to let your eyes dictate.
I think it's funny.
I stunk.
I think it's funny when fans bring up, it just happened to me during the show. I wrote something about Jalen Hurts never being able to throw for 300 plus yards and, win a game. And he did it and they're, clipping out an old column. I think it's, we do this stuff every day. I think it's funny that people think we don't think we're wrong. I mean, you're saying things. I'm wrong all the time. I get stuff wrong
about Carson Wentz.
you say something on on a daily basis, you're not going to get everything right. You're not pointing out something I don't know. We give our opinion at the time of the opinion, and players prove it to be correct. I think I get more stuff right than I get wrong, but I get stuff wrong all the time. I thought I say that my biggest one, and I say it all the time because I'm always above board, if anything. I thought Ryan Leaf was going to be better than Peyton Manning. That's a miss, Jody.
Yeah,
that's a big miss. That's a big
yeah.
matzo ball, as Jerry Seinfeld would say. That's a big one.
Yeah, that one never really had a chance of coming.
We all get stuff wrong. It's I never saw Carson Wentz's 2020 coming. I say it all the why would you? Now, I thought he was never going to be the same player, and I know you got to get out of here, Jody. But I didn't see 2020 coming. He was an effective quarterback in his as Mike Gill pointed out earlier, he played pretty well in Indianapolis. He's playing pretty well now. Not great, but he's not playing like 2020 Carson Wentz. He's playing like a starting quarterback.
Certainly my biggest concern coming into 2020 for Carson Wentz was, can he stay healthy? Not, can he be a competent quarterback? I didn't even think that was on the table.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even a competent quarterback. All right, J-Mac. Yeah, I got to run. I got to go do some radio work. So you and Tom going to take it home. You and me back here tomorrow in 22 hours. You up?
Yeah. A little bit more than 2 and 2 for you. 2 and 15 minutes.
Johnny Mac and Tom coming back to put out a bow in the show here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Action News at 11 with Rick Williams. It's the team you trust to bring it all together. The stories that impact your community. A sports roundup for the locals. And the AccuWeather forecast you depend on. Action News at 11 with Rick Williams.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
Welcome to Pondley Hockey. We've helped over 100,000 injured and disabled workers obtain benefits, as well as some of the biggest settlements in the state. If you've been injured at work, give Pondley Hockey a call.
Welcome back to Birds 365. I'm here with John McMullen, and we're going to try to hold this thing down without the legendary Jody Mack. John, man, a lot of hype around these Philadelphia Eagles, since Jalen Hurts has, I guess, quote unquote, ascended and taken his game to another level. But like you said something really interesting earlier on, that eventually the test will come. There's going to be an opponent. They may not be technically better or maybe better from a talent perspective, but they're going to be tested in some sort of way. How do you think the Philadelphia Eagles will be tested going forward? Where do you think the weakness lies?
Well, you would argue in the first 2 weeks they haven't shown a weakness. But I think if you sort of peel the onion back, you saw some of the weaknesses against Detroit in the fact that they did struggle with some of the pressure. But Jalen Hurts was able to do things himself off schedule. The ability to beat the lines with his legs. So it's going to be that sort of plan buttoned up with an ability to keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket at least a little bit better. So I would think it's going to come, and Todd, and I go back to the playoff game in Tampa Bay. Todd Bowles gave the best example of this. What you want to do is keep him in the pocket as much as possible, force him to throw the football rather than run the football. And to do that, you probably need to have linebackers like Tampa Bay. You need to have one guy who can spy Jalen Hurts. You need guys who can run from sideline to sideline. So you need a lot. But I think people are really, really excited about the passing acumen Jalen Hurts. And I get it. It was tremendous. But that's going to be the worst coverage the Eagles see all year. And I'm saying that in week 2. It's not going to get worse than that. It really isn't. I gave you the numbers from Next Gen Stats. Those numbers are not normal. So I do think you have to add that into the mix and say, part of it was Jalen making good throws, quick decisions, definitive decisions, confidence in himself. But part of that was also tied to the fact that the coverage by the other end was so poor. And generally, you're not going to see that in the NFL.
True. And, it's to be expected that defenses are going to get sharper. Teams are going to get better as the season goes. But it's also fair to suggest that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to become better. They're going to become sharper. They're going to begin to clean up the mistakes that we have seen. So how good can this Philadelphia Eagles team really be with Jalen Hurts starting to figure it out?
Well, they're the number 1 ranked offense in the NFL, 470 yards a game, whatever it is. I mean, can they keep that pace up? I don't think so. It would be in a historic pace if they do. They have, I think, the best offensive line in football. I think they have certainly a top 5 receiving group. I think they can run the ball effectively at will. A lot of that has to do with Jalen Hurts. They have everything to be a successful offense. So it comes down to the consistency from week to week. They should be difficult to stop. And that's what we have to see with Jalen Hurts from week to week. That's the final step. Is it consistent from week to week throwing the football? Doesn't have to be like it was against Minnesota. That's unrealistic. But if the throws are there, can he make the throws? Early, he has. 17 games, long time. Consistency is the hallmark of great quarterbacks.
So I know you and Jody love to do exercises, right? And I know you guys have the infamous exercise where you pick the amount of wins you think the team will have, and depending on the situation, has it gone up for you? Has it dropped? Has 11 wins become 12 wins? Has 11 wins become 10 wins, right? And let's say hypothetically this team continues to stay sharp and Jalen Hurts continues to stack these days, right? At what point in the season are you willing to move your needle?
Oh, I've already moved my needle. My needle was pointing down. It's now pointing up.
Okay.
A number of reasons. The schedule looks even easier than it did when it started for a variety of reasons. Talk about Washington this week, no Chase Young. You talk about Arizona, no DeAndre Hopkins suspended. You talk about Dallas. Is Dak Prescott going to be back? Jerry Jones is trying to push him back, but is he going to be back and be Dak Prescott? A lot of things have tilted the Eagles' way already. The division stinks even more than I thought it did because Dallas is not as tough as it looked on paper. So it's definitely trending up. And look, if you can, this is the favorite. You know, Kevin Kincaid mentioned Nick Sirianni's now second for Coach of the Year. Jalen Hurts is fourth for MVP in the betting odds now, or tied for third, actually, I think.
Yeah, I read it was
Super Bowl. Yeah, tied for third. Super Bowl, you know, this is now a relevant team when it comes to the betting market because they're seeing everything we're seeing, and the fact that, well, this division is not great. Some of the teams, you know, a lot of people said, I thought they'd be 1-1. I thought they'd lose a game. Now they still might in those first three games. I said they're going to lose one of them. They almost lost in Detroit. They blew out Minnesota. Now you have Washington. If they get to 3-0, then you're going to see it really ramp up. I hesitate because that was such a poor game plan from Minnesota. I don't know. I still don't know. Days after, I still don't know what they were trying to accomplish.
Really quickly, was that the same game plan? I mean, there's no same game plan for any given team, but was it a similar game plan that they implemented against Aaron Rodgers? Because I watched that Minnesota team against Aaron Rodgers, and I personally don't think they were doing anything spectacular.
No, but the thing was, Green Bay didn't have their starting tackles. So David Bakhtiari was out. Elgin Jenkins was out. And those are good players. And all of a sudden, so they were playing backup tackles, and Daniil Hunter and Zadarius Smith could get home or at least pressure Aaron Rodgers. This week, you show up, and it's Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata, and you don't change. It's exactly what I was talking. I gave JG a ton of credit because, you know, people are like, blitz, blitz, blitz. That's another concern of mine. And he saw Minnesota and their weakness and Garrett Bradbury and said, I'm going right at it. Now, people expect him to do that every week. He can't do that every week. You don't have that weakness every week. So, you know, it's about the opponent you're playing this week, and that's the Washington Commanders. Now you have to come up with a plan to take advantage of their weaknesses, and we'll see if the Eagles can do it.
There you have you guys. You know, he's John McMullen. I'm Tony DeShields II. You guys are watching Birds 365. You know, at the end of the day, your Philadelphia Eagles have started the season off well, and they have shown that they're capable of putting up big numbers on offense, and the defense has shown that they're capable of limiting a top-tier weapon such as Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook. But the road will only get tougher. And if you ask me, the early part of the season is where the emotional roller coaster is. You have the Carson Wentz drama. You have Doug Peterson's return to Philadelphia. You had the season opener in Detroit with that ruckus environment. You have the Dallas Cowboys first matchup. You have a road game against Kyler Murray. Jalen Hurts obviously is compared to that guy. So I think most of the emotionally tied games were early on in the season, and it's entirely plausible this Philadelphia Eagles team can, believe it or not, it's very possible they can go into the bye 6-0, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, everyone. One game at a time. This week they have the Washington Commanders, like our host John McMullen said, and, you know, we'll see how it pans out, but we appreciate you guys for locking in on the content. Next, we have the football playbook with Rick Saratella. Make sure you guys are locked in on JAKIB Sports. Smash the like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the content. Continue to stay engaged because JAKIB Sports has you covered. John, any final words?
No, just turn the page. Forget about the big win on Monday night. Time to focus in on the Washington Commanders. This is a real rivalry week. And NFC East games are going to be a little bit tougher than expected because the teams know each other so well.
Hey, there you have you guys. He's John McMullen. I'm Tony DeShows II, filling in for Jody Mack. Keep it locked, you guys. You were locked in on Birds 365. We'll see you guys in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.